Had to rewrite the entire script because when I was done revising it, my computer decided it'd be a good time to crash before I had time to save. Rookie mistake for me, forgetting to save my work. I'm Lance, and welcome to Just the Tip, where I explain something awfully that I know a bit about, and today we're talking about my favorite Pokemon game, Pokemon Colosseum, what I wish Ultra Sun and Moon will be, even though we all know it's just going to be Black and White 2, but for Sun and Moon. Anyway, on to the title card. I have played at least one version of every set of main Pokemon games throughout my many years from Generation 3 to present, and throughout this time I have grown tired of every region feeling so similar. As a kid, at some point, I acquired Pokemon Colosseum, which at that time I writ off as a weird Pokemon game, but looking back on it, it's the epitome of everything I would love Sun and Moon to have been, but even more, as my cynical side still says the amount of change in Sun and Moon was not enough. Now, to quickly mention what makes this game feel different than most Pokemon games. For starters, all battles are double battles, and there are no single-player battles except some after-game stuff. There are no wild Pokemon to speak of, and for once, instead of being a bratty 11-year-old, or 10-year-old or whatever, you're an ex-con who has just stolen a device that allows you to steal the Pokemon from anyone. A bit of a tangent here, but I've always wanted to rant about this. I don't know why the Pokemon games act like the main character is 10 or 11, when every piece of official artwork, sprites, and player models in-game always make them look like they're at least in their mid-teens. That's just me. I know it's a marketing decision, but as a kid, I like Pokemon. I really don't care that Ash is supposed to be 10, even though either way he's an idiot, but he's definitely not 10. Anyway, tangent aside, on to the next bit. Okay, the reason that Colosseum and its sequel, XD Gale of Darkness, Pokemon using emoticons before they were cool, they were both spiritual successors to the Stadium games for the Nintendo 64, which were just basically, hey, it's cool 3D Pokemon. While Colosseum and Gale of Darkness were created to fix the large hole of Pokemon that were not available anymore, as when Generation 3 came around, Ruby, Sapphire, and at some time later, Emerald, there was a change with how Pokemon were generated, and the developers behind Pokemon decided that instead of trying to convert Generation 1 and 2 Pokemon into Generation 3 games, they decided it was much simpler just to not have them be compatible at all. So to fix this, they re-released Red and Green as Fire Red and Leaf Green, holding up the 151 originals that were unobtainable. Also had the Generation 2 Pokemon, instead of remaking a game that was only about a year or two old when Ruby and Sapphire and Emerald came out, they instead redistributed the Generation 2 Pokemon of about 100 Pokemon in between Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald, Fire Red, Leaf Green, and Colosseum and Gale of Darkness. The story begins with our protagonist Wes blowing up the side of a building because the front door is for snot-nosed little kids, stealing the only Snag-'em machine prototype portable. This machine is used throughout the story to steal Pokemon from trainers. As a group of One Punch Man cosplayers hear the explosion and chase after you, also known as Snag-'em, your old evil team, as you retreat to your amazing one-wheeled motorcycle with floating sidecar with your Umbreon, having the best smug, not at all creepy evil smile, as you speed away with your Pokemon. Team Snag-'em, out of breath outside their base, curse you under their breath as you pull out your detonator and press the button, destroying the rest of their base as you rocket out of the canyon into the desert like a boss. As cool as this opening sets up your character, it is immediately destroyed within about 30 minutes of gameplay, as you rescue the most annoying side character in any RPG/Pokemon game. Plot mover, I mean Rui, an airhead that's only there because she can see shadow Pokemon, and she is related to some important NPCs. She's underdeveloped and uninteresting as a sidekick. Anyway, you meet a member of the Clipper organization, the people making and distributing these dangerous shadow Pokemon. While the story of Colosseum has no Pokemon gyms or league, nor any form of routes as you just fast travel to every location you go to, I'm going to gloss over the story because it's, again, a Pokemon story. As much as I love this game, it's just as bad, if not worse, than most Pokemon games, because the evil team in this, their motivations aren't even made clear, which is usually a staple of any evil Pokemon team. Anyway, I'm going to also mention the best villain that you'll meet in this entire game, and his name is Mirror B. I've been using his theme as the transition between each one of these subjects. He's best character. He has a giant afro that is a Pokeball. I mean, what could be better? We're going to the next thing because I didn't know how to end this one. Okay, now on to the bread and butter of what makes this game different from every other Pokemon game while also having the exact same battle system. As stated earlier, the entire game is double battles, and this Pokemon game starts out with giving you 2 level 30 Pokemon, Umbreon and Espeon, and as you progress through the game, the levels of Pokemon you'll encounter go from 30 to about 55 near the very end. Most of the movesets of the limited pool of about 40-ish Pokemon you'll encounter and can catch, as stated before, no wild Pokemon, are balanced around each battle being a double battle. So there are Pokemon that, can't be hit by certain moves, like Mischievous and Earthquake, so you can use that Pokemon with a Pokemon that knows Earthquake, which there are a few that can. There are Pokemon that get benefits from Rainy Day or Sunny Day, etc. And you get more use out of moves you'd usually never use in a regular Pokemon game. I'm looking at you, Helping Hand, always useless, never useful. The game is set in the Ori region. I've probably butchered that, but it's based on the area of Phoenix, Arizona in America. As stated for the third time, has no wild Pokemon, and you must steal them using the Snaggle machine you steal in the beginning cinematic. The problem with this is, as exciting as it sounds to be able to steal Pokemon from anyone, you are quickly railroaded into only ever going to be able to use it against Shadow Pokemon, which, as I've glossed over in the past, Shadow Pokemon are Pokemon that have had their heart sealed and basically are corrupted, evil, etc. They are more powerful but more dangerous as they will attack other trainers without hesitation. All Shadow Pokemon have their first move slot replaced with a move called Shadow Rush, a high damage, high accuracy move with recoil damage. Shadow Rush has no advantage or disadvantage to any other type. Also, Shadow Pokemon gain no resistances or weaknesses. The defensive types of Shadow Pokemon are the exact same. All Shadow Pokemon are optional, but you're going to need to catch a few of them if you want a good party in this game, since they're the only Pokemon you can catch. But if you want Ho-Oh at the end of the game, you're going to want to get them all, and it's much easier to get them as you progress through the game, because if you miss a Pokemon, you can encounter them again for certain important NPCs that you fight more than once, and for non-important NPCs you fight only once. You can get them again after the end game, but it's a lot more tedious, so I would recommend getting it as soon as possible if you're going to try to go for Ho-Oh. But then again, this is like a game from the early 2000s, no one's going to be doing that other than me. Anyway, all Shadow Pokemon, once caught, only know Shadow Rush. They forget their other 3 moves. When you're fighting them, they have all their 3 moves plus Shadow Rush, but when you get them, it's only Shadow Rush. They have no experience bar, they have a purple bar, and they gain no experience. This purple bar is basically what I refer to as a reverse friendship meter. As you use them more and do certain things that I'm not going to detail because of time, that will go down. As it goes down certain increments, they will relearn their other 3 moves, and once it's to 0, you can go to a story-specific location and get them healed from being a Shadow Pokemon, which takes away Shadow Rush and gives them any experience they got while as a Shadow Pokemon they would have normally have gotten. They also, if they get enough experience, obviously, they level up and evolve, learn same moves, whatever. They get a badge if you care about that. And if you're unlucky enough to get them to be shiny when you catch them as a shadow Pokemon, in this game, it will re-roll the chances of it being a shiny Pokemon. Now to detail how Shadow Rush works, or how shadow Pokemon work, I mean. When you use a shadow Pokemon, they will sometimes enter a mode called Hyper Mode. In Hyper Mode, 1, Shadow Rush has a higher critical hit chance. Secondly, they will do a lot of bad things if you don't try to use Shadow Rush. For instance, hitting themselves like they're confused, hitting a teammate, trying to use an item if they have one or not, if that's usable or not, wasting their turn, switching out by themselves unless there's no Pokemon to switch with. If you try not to use Shadow Rush, they'll disobey and most likely use Shadow Rush. Anyway, you can use an ability called Call, which they added in this game. Since all battles are trainer battles, there's no reason to have a run button that would never be used. They added a button called Call. And in this game, it does 2 things. Well, 3 things. You can use it to skip your turn for any reason. Let's say you're trying to catch a shadow Pokemon, it's low on HP, you don't want to deal damage with your second Pokemon, because... Anyway, to stall, if your Pokemon's asleep, you can call and it's 100% chance to wake them up. That was an oversight on whoever made this game. It was made by another company, I think, or something like that. Anyway, in the sequel they fixed that where that wasn't a thing. Or if they go into Shadow Rush mode, you can get them out of it, and it takes a large chunk out of the corruption meter. Now to the final bit, the most important bit. There are plenty of side battle modes that are barely seen in the main campaign of Pokemon game. For instance, double battles are the most common, but even then they're rare. Then in Black and White they added triple and rotation battles, and Sun and Moon added the new 4v4 free-for-all, whatever it was called, and I don't remember. And I guess you could count inverse battles where all the typing's disadvantages and advantages are switched, which is kind of interesting. I would love a Pokemon side game focused around using one of these, or even a new one. Maybe turn SOS into a 1v2, or have a horde mode where it's 1v5, or do like the weird, interesting things they did with the totem Pokemon, or whatever they were called in Sun and Moon. I can't remember. It's been a while since I played that game. Also, I liked that the fact that since there were no wild Pokemon, there was you had a very limited pool of Pokemon to choose from. I would love if they did something different, but similar to this. For instance, how in the Pokemon Ranger games, you only get a Pokemon for a limited amount of time. I would love a game where you could only catch Pokemon for a limited amount of battles. That's for a smarter person to balance correctly, where it's not tedious, but still. And in future, instead of remaking an entire generation, like, for instance, they had to re-release the original Red and Green and Blue or Yellow, whatever, the first generation. Instead of when they have to come back to that again and remake it, when maybe they've moved past the 3DS, instead of putting the Hoenn region in another game or remaking it again, we could have a little side adventure that is a bit more story-focused with some interesting mechanics like Pokemon Colosseum. But that's just a thought. Or maybe just do more weird micro-regions that are new and interesting. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. After having to write this script twice, I'm going to go get some sleep and work on a bigger video coming up down the road. Have a good day. Also, if you're looking for a Pokemon fan game, I would suggest looking at Pokemon Insurgents, which is basically a new region, and it has Pokemon from later generations, 5, 6, I don't know if Sun and Moon's in there, but X and Y and is definitely in there. Anyway, Pokemon from older regions, but it's one of those games that is in like Generation 3 art style. It borrows a lot from Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. It has Mega Evolutions, all that. New region, some reimagined Pokemon, which you can turn off if you want. There are lots of challenges you can put on there, like randomizer, stuff like that, Nuzlocke, some of that stuff people like, etc. I would suggest playing it before, Nintendo gets to it. Anyway, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. Have a good day.
Triple kill.
Rocket barrage.